Hey Gary, how are you doing?
Craig, you didn't
Hey,
change the profile.
just getting going here. I'm a little. I
You
thought
still
we.
have the old profile.
Well, I know. I'll have to figure that out. I tried to
I,
fix it, but
I
I don't
feel
know
so
how.
bad that I messed it up, you
Oh,
know?
it's not a. Who cares? I don't. So, was does they say a rose by any other name?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if I can change this. I don't know what. I'll try, but edit profile picture. Oh, there you go. Rename.
Yeah, you can
Gotta
change what you log
rename.
in
All
as.
right. This is, there we go. Yeah. Okay, there we go. All right, now I'm set. Yeah, well, how have you been?
Oh, I've been good.
Oh, yeah, I don't know, we just got back from vacation. It was a very, very busy week. And, I did read most of the Living Symbol again. I mean, yeah, I'm the type of person that needs to read something more than once.
Oh, you and me
Or,
both. I mean,
yeah.
I'm like, you just blow me away when I hear how many times you read things and stuff. I'm like, wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first time you read it, it's like, uh, you know, um, it's stunning. It just stuns you. And the second time you read it, it's more, oh yeah, I missed that. And like when Young, yeah, when Young goes into the desert and finds the anchorite, and he asks him how many years he's been there, and he says, I don't know. Time goes by so fast here. And he says, what do you mean time goes by so fast here? He says, he says, what do you do all day? You just got this one book. And he says, you don't understand. Every time I read this book, I find different things in it.
Mm.
And the idea is the words are alive. The words are moving, and they
Right,
represent
right.
something that's behind them. I mean, it's not a uh, they're not static anyway. Um, but I've been doing really good on my active imaginations. I've been do a kind of a well, I'm getting to the point where I can uh, I think if I get deep into it enough, you really do see things moving. I mean, if you do it long enough, like I did it like about 90 minutes today. And I mean, I did a bit of hour, and then I did about 30 minutes uh, I just really just tried to black out. And I saw a lot of things moving, but it
Hmm.
wasn't nothing really exciting happened. But
So, do you look for like an inner character then? I mean,
yes, yeah, I look for an inner character. Hi, Jan. And that was, I often ask them, I say, could you reveal yourself to me? And I put a something right in front of my chair. Hi, Kevin. And then I see them sitting in the chair. I mean, right next in front of me. And then, I mean, I really do. I mean, I think that's so helpful. And then I say, look into my eyes, and we look in each other's eyes, and then I reach out to grab their hands, and I mean, I just try to make
oh,
some.
do you get like a tactile sense then when you grab their hand?
I get not a tactile sense, but a sense of connection,
Ah, okay.
sense of bonding. And
Right.
I do feel that there is it is a way of um, it is better than not doing it. I mean, there is a different quality to doing that than not doing it. And And I think what one of the things that I really struck home to me was the first day after I got back from vacation doing active imagination, where everything had, as Jung said, sunk back into the earth.
Mm.
So I mean, you really did feel that, and I. So what I did in my active imagination is I said, you know, um, I realize now how much I need you. I mean, how important and how real this realm was for me, and I grieve at its not being there now, and at its absence,
Right.
and so what was here and what was absent. Hi, Adam, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Great. I thought today, and next, actually, we'll have the Black Books probably Tuesday, and I'll start getting them out. And I mean, I don't know. Everybody's going to want to just read them, I mean, if you have the Red Book itself, it did not include the 7 sermons to the dead, and the 7 sermons to the dead are the best part, really.
Mm.
And then they didn't include Philemon's commentaries on the 7 sermons to the dead, and plus there's all kinds of stuff in there about Phanes, who is Jung's god, is what he's called, and he does these big long poems about Phanes. But I was just telling Gary, that when I got back from, and it's also, well, kind of tell about Jung's early days of active imagination, where, essentially he started out with just seeing landscapes, and then pretty soon he put himself in the landscapes, and then what he told others he did was that he would violently fight these figures. I mean, he would challenge them, and to try to assert his humanity, and to make them real. I mean, he said that when you do them, take them extremely literally as it's happening. This is happening, but then later try to make it in a symbolic form, and the one thing I really enjoyed from, and I'm going to continue to bring in a little bit of the living symbol, because Gerhard Adler is so underrated. I mean, but the one thing that he said was that the ego is the mediator between the unconscious source and creation. I mean, he's talking about the patient, and he says the ego's proper function is that it's an organ of mediation between inside and outside. Now, isn't that beautiful? Between the deep layers of the unconscious and the ever-changing pattern of reality that's in front of us. So the ego's proper function is to be the mediator between the inner world and what happens in the reality. The mediator, that's its proper role. And that it's, and Jung said that it's, the ego is an essential part of the self, the mirror in which the unconscious becomes aware of its own face, So it's not aware of its own face. It needs a mediator to show its own face, because it lives in the timeless world. And these things that sink down into the depths, what are they doing down there? Nothing. I mean, they do think somehow, because they come up and bring commentary. That was another thing that Adler did, is he went through every one of her dreams and said, now what is the ego function here? I mean, what is the dream ego like here? Well, it is trying to cheat the psychological friend with the diamond brooch with the five, or the brooch with the 5 diamonds on it. Okay, what's it like here? You know, it's the one who won't go into any of the 3 churches. What's it like here? So now he makes a list in each dream. What did the dream ego do in this dream? You know, so then at the end of this, looking at this series of dreams of what the dream ego did in each dream, like you know, um, gave alms to the Sybil, you know, the one who's not to be laughed at, when she gave small change to her, and you know, the backs the wrong side in an air battle, is the one who's calls for the midwife too soon. You know, he just lists all of these things, and then a picture starts to develop of what the inner ordering archetype of the psyche thinks of the dream ego. So now we kind of get a mirror of our face, you know. Hi, Kevin. But I thought that since we're going to start on the black books next time, and hopefully it's going to be at least initially exciting, you know, something we don't have now that we have. After we have it, we don't want it. That's what I tell I tell my wife about our grandson. When he wants something, you know, he lives maybe 20 miles away from us. Can you drive out there and pick me up and go get it right now? And then as soon as he has it, he just throws it away. But the idea here, I was just mentioning, I thought maybe we'd all do this, is what is what is it we're trying to do exactly? Do we have I mean, not if maybe we don't know, that's fine. But I mean, when I was on vacation, I was telling Gary that you know, I couldn't do active imagination because you get up every morning, we just drive, you know, and then be too tired at night, and going out to eat and all this kind of stuff. And so when I got back and I started doing I call them meditations. You know, I basically do a meditation, and then I try to see some field of the unconscious, usually a forest, and then go into it, you know. And it was gone. It was all gone. All the characters were gone. It was just total blackness, you know. So then afterwards, I do 20 or 30 minutes of just writing, and that's usually the most productive. I think it's the best part, or they're both equally important. But remember, Jung says, or his soul says, that we're supposed to be, we have two, you know, the ego's proper function is to be the mediator between the realm of images and reality. And, you know, that any event that happens in reality that doesn't have an image associated with it is only half the world, you know. So if you're only dealing with these events out here without the image that's associated with it, then you know. And he had this wonderful description of synchronicity too, that is I think has to do with the images as well. He says that that you know, synchronicity, this strange. Well, she sees this road. There's one serpentine road, and then there's a zigzag road. The zigzag road is masculine and represents a lightning flash, and the serpentine road represents a more feminine road, you know, a more lunar type road. And then the next morning when she went to work, the first thing she picks up is a newspaper, and she reads about the fantastic highways which twist over the Tennebar Mountains, you know. And so then it was in a preface impressive instance of what Jung called synchronicity. And then he has this really, I think this is what Adler's main thing is. He can explain some of these concepts so clearly. He says synchronicity designates the simultaneous occurrence of two meaningful but not causally connected events. So my wife, when her sister died, I think in 1977, she had asked someone to marry her. She was having some bipolar issues. He refused to, so she moved back home, and she had this guitar case full of drugs and things, and she one night just overdosed, and she was like, let's see, she was like 23, and so at her funeral they played Blackbird Singing in the Dead of Night. She was quite a musician. And anyway, so my wife goes down and stays at the Hotel Grinnell. It's in Grinnell, Iowa. And while she's staying in this room, which used to be a high school that they turned into a hotel, a crow flies up on her ledge and starts pecking at the window. And it won't stop pecking at the window. Well, what's the causal connection between the crow at the window and Grinnell, Iowa? But anyway, it is this. Now it goes a little deeper than that. The simultaneous occurrence of a certain psychic state with one or more external events. And remember, we got the ego's the mediator between the realm of images and the external reality. And the thing is, I brought it up because of that active imagination. I'm all over the place here. I'm sorry, but that there is the two things that we do as the mediator is to be the medium of expression, which is nonverbal, and that means to draw it, to paint it, to do a mandala, to do something that represents an inner psychic state in a nonverbal fashion. It can be anything. It can be sand play. Jan is very good at sand play, but it's nonverbal. But then you have to add, and that's where I really, in my grieving for everything sinking back into the unconscious, where it came out was when I wrote down a dialogue. I realized how important and how real you are to me, even though you are neither nor. You're not there, but yet I grieve the loss of you, because what happened, even though it was very, like Gary was saying, I reach out to take their hands. He says, do you feel tactile? No, I don't, but I do feel a connection that I didn't feel before, and then I see their eyes. Do you see a face? I imagine a face, okay? And then I see through those eyes. And like Hillman says that we are remember the three types of people Jeffrey Raff said there's the people with wings who just fly up to the realm of spirit. There's the other ones that have a ladder they carry around up. They're the ladder climbers. And then most of us, Raff said, are the rope climbers. So, we have to, this was from the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz. So anyway, I just thought of this synchronicity thing as synchronicity is this, it's an activation of an archetypal field. Well, what's an archetypal field? It's a characteristic of a state where there is an archetypal field is a state where there exists an interdependence of world and psyche. Ego is the mediator between the realm of images, psyche, and the outer world. Okay. So when there's this interdependence, that's how did that happen? It didn't. If there wasn't ego as the mediator between the two realms, it wouldn't happen. So the ego is the place where the synchronicities happen. You know, when there's an interdependence between the realm of images and what happens in the outer world. How does that ever occur? Sometimes it occurs with a lightning strike, like my wife, who's not working on these very things very strongly, but the blackbird comes up and taps at her window, you know. Then it's where the divisions into inside and outside become more and more non-existent, or at least is partially ineffective. This points to the transgressiveness. And that means transgressiveness means where if you transgress something, that means there was a boundary there and you violated the boundary. So it's where if the transgressiveness, where boundaries which previously existed or violated, becomes more apparent, you know, and in circumstances which aren't psychic, you know. So anyway, that was kind of my little experience with that this week. I thought maybe other people could you know, just everybody just talk about. I mean, remember what do you think Jungian psychology to you is, you know, and do you do anything in the outer world? And if you don't, you know, say what is it that you would do in an ideal world? You know, what do you think, Gary? Can you just kind of describe your? And it doesn't have to be Jungian. What is your spiritual practice or your soulful practice? Now, let's not make it Jungian, because Jung is nothing.
Well, I'm going to have to go with Jung because that's all I've got for the soulful practice.
Okay.
But, you know, so basically, what I like about Jung is it gives me a way of being spiritual, being soulful, I guess would probably be a better description because it's down and through instead of up and out. Without having to, you know, follow a particular religion, which I seem to have some shadow-like resistance to. So, but, you know, and I guess, you know, really what I want to get out of this is several things, but I think one of the biggest things I want to get out of it is a development of the sense of my intuition, you know, sort of the realization when you see something and it's like, he talks about seeing the symbol in the world. And if you can see the, you know, the symbol in a situation or in, you know, some part of something that you're a part of, then that means you've got an understanding at, you know, a really good level. And I think, you know, and I think the other thing that I find really interesting about Jung is that, you know, his way of looking at the world is, you know, it makes you realize that, you know, what we define as being real and what is actually real are possibly, you know, two completely different things. And so, you know, it starts to make a lot more sense where, you know, you do these practices where, you know, your ego, you know, where you choose if there's an ego there or not, so that you can feel that sense of emptiness, so maybe other things can come through. And the, you know, the whole idea of the self being the driving force, which then the ego is in service to. So I find, you know, so I guess, you know, so for, you know, the practices that I actually do that, you know, maybe go along with Jung's ideas, you know, I meditate, you know, I'm working on the love letters to the anima is kind of a pre-step to doing the active imaginations that you do. And, and then I also, one of the things I thought was kind of interesting is, so I've got a subscription to glow.com, and they have, some Kundalini courses up there. And I started doing these, and really, what these are breathing exercises along with, maybe some things to loosen up the spine and stuff. But I found that, it really puts me in a kind of a deep state much, much faster than, for example, doing meditation. So I've been trying that along with, a type of active imagination that you do. And I can only say that I have miles to go.
Well, we all do. I mean, it's this is how do you train ego, to be the mediator between, and let you're sort of the conduit for some other. But go ahead.
Yeah, well,
Could you describe what you do, that glow thing again? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, the glow thing is, there's glow has got yoga at all different levels, and I tend to do the very basic ones because I'm not that flexible. But so I just search for, what have you got in Kundalini? And the instructor they have for Kundalini is just, I don't know. You look at her and you just feel like she is like somewhere else, rather magical. And so I've been, so she has the practices for how to do like the mudras, which is where you kind of move, you hold and move the energy up. And, so you basically, you do these exercises, and then you choose like one of the yogas, so I've been doing her Kundalini meditation one. And, it's also kind of a spine loosening exercise. But what I find is at the end of that, I'm already almost in like kind of a trance-like state. So it's really easy to go from that to doing the active imagination. Because of course, if you're going to do the active imagination, somehow you have to get in a bit of an altered state. And if you do meditation, well, that's not active. That's, you're specifically you're staying away from the active portion. So then the question is, for your active imagination, what's the best way to prepare for that, so that that you're not stuck at a very conscious level, because I think you want to be in somewhat of a hypnagogic state when you do it. And I found that Kundalini, and this is like, this is a really simple thing to do. So it's not like this takes a lot of practice. It takes some mindfulness. You have to be thinking about what you're doing to follow her examples. But I highly recommend it. And I'm sure you could find equivalents just like going up on YouTube. But I like that there's a way that I can immediately ground it in the body to kind of get the mind where I need it to be to try it.
Well, yeah, and I think you've shown in the active imagination things too that this is not something that you're not doing. You're doing it big time. And I think, to me, it's just doing it. And it's not, and since I'm a rope climber, not a ladder climber, I'm very patient.
Yeah. Oh, and just for grins, I mean, like, so far, just on the love letters to the anima, I have 135 of those so far.
Yeah.
And
well,
what I found is that, like, now it doesn't even matter what I look at. I don't have to find anything special. I can look at anything and just, immediately with my imagination kind of, create a dialogue, a story that goes with it. Now, is that a connection with, like some sort of inner voice? I don't think so, but, like maybe if I was like a depth psychologist, I would look at the, because these are basically fantasies. Maybe I would look at the fantasy and I would say, oh, this is what, from the types of fantasies that you're having, this is what I see. But it's not like what you do in active imagination where you are, actually having like a dialogue with a inner voice, for example.
Yeah, which I, even though it is, I feel like I'm doing both sides, I take the other side literally,
Yeah.
as if it isn't me, and try to personalize it.
And I guess, the one other thing that I've started doing too is like, if I'm, if I've got like a certain question in my mind, or if I'm just in a certain situation, you're just like, I ask my animal, I say to my animal, hey, what would you do? Speak up. And I kind of give it a voice and then listen to what it says, And of course, I'm sure that, when I'm creating this, but, I think these types of, I think that's the first step. You really have to be willing to push the imagination in order to, to get access to these things.
Well, I think you just have to do it. I mean, that was what I found on vacation. If I do it and then I don't have access to it anymore, I feel the loss of it. So what did I lose? It's real, and I don't, and when I'm not speaking and the other ones speak, I'm speaking to myself in the guise. First I put myself in their head and their body. And then I try to see myself before I talk. I have a chair right in front of me. And so now I look at myself sitting here, and then I answer myself.
Oh, that is so important, because Bosnak uses that exact technique in dream analysis. And what he says is that, don't just go giving the other, person or whatever a voice, first, before you see that, look for something in their posture that you can kind of feel your way into. And then when you've felt your way into that, you have to feel like you're actually in their body. Only then, should you try to speak in their voice. So he goes through this whole thing of embodiment. And then in order to make it, so it can go a little bit faster after that. So after they've replied once, you try to feel it in a part of your body. And once you know where that feeling is in the part of the body for, for that other being, then when you want to go back to that, you go back to that, you kind of focus on that feeling and then transfer over.
Well, it's kind of like the non-manipulative painting that Tim does, where he has to put the marine boots outside his door so that, the ego is not manipulating what's happening. I try to, once you know what we're talking about, like what I'm talking about right now, and particularly if you're in a sacred circle of stories, you find it's not you talking. But sometimes it is you because you're manipulating, but sometimes it isn't. If you can not manipulate, like you would do, like Tim does in art, where he puts his boots outside. Well, why don't Kevin, and let's just hear from everybody, and who wants to contribute. Yeah. What do you do, Kevin? And it doesn't just, how do you ground yourself or whatever?
For me, it's a dream analysis. I think I'm closest to the source that way. The dream analysis is important for me. So for me, it's the objective psyche. And so I feel like the more aware you are of your dream, and hopefully doing active imagination. I felt like first time I was able to do it a few days ago. So a connection with a self, basically. I don't know.
Well, you make my heart throb, because it is the most genuine thing we have. I mean, other than the most genuine thing, psychic thing about us, soulful thing that we have is our dreams. Because that's definitely not ego. In fact, if you do act, me too, the most productive ego act imagination is to ask your inner figure, what does this mean? And then let them answer. What does this mean? To me, that's the most productive things I do. But go keep going, Kevin. Is there anything else that?
No, not, yeah, that's pretty much connection to consciousness. I think consciousness is the only reality. I don't think it's more than that. And is a connection to that very reality. So there is no unconscious for me. Everything is in a way conscious.
Well, Adam, thank you, Kevin. And you're a thinking function, and I'm intuitive thinker. I don't know what, Gary, you're an intuitive something, probably thinker. What do you do, Adam?
Well, so, well, also going back to, why, I guess, so I originally joined this group because, whether or not I want to, it seems like in my life, I go deep with this stuff. And so I was looking for, a community of people where we were all kind of working on this kind of stuff together. I think I found it. We're all different, and some of us come and participate sometimes, and some of us don't, whatever. But my own particular practices, if you want to put it that way, is, as I think most of us know, since I was in a spiritual community for a really long time, we have certain exercises. We have kind of a wide range of things that we do. There is a meditation that we do, which it's not like Gary mentioned, sort of passive or not active meditation. I think there's very many different kinds. The one that we do actually has, or that I do, has like various components. There's an invocation where you're kind of talking to your deeper self. Maybe you have a question, or you're just like, this is where I am. Next step is an imaginative picture where there's an image of some kind which appears that seems relevant, to whatever situation it is that you might be in, or whatever you want to work with. After that, there's a part called sensations. So what do you feel associated with that? Then there's a step called purposes, where you kind of apply your will to the situation, based on this experience that I just had of, talking about this thing and having an image and a feeling. Well, what do I really feel is appropriate for me, like a step to take in my life, based on that. And I actually take the step in that moment. It's not like I will, do something. It's actually, I actually do it internally. And then the last step is called consequences, where you kind of reflect on the whole process and, did something happen? And then there's a very quick summary where you go through each of the steps in turn very quickly, and it sort of makes a little package out of it. So I do that like every day. And so I would consider that sort of my practice. It's kind of like an active imagination that also engages feelings and your will. As far as my personal life goes, I seem to be in a place where I'm like almost totally ungrounded, which is very, very, very challenging. So I'm looking more and more for like ways to embody this stuff. So it's not just like a mentally emotional thing, but it's like, I don't know. I'll just finish up here. Yesterday I found something called tapping meditation, which is, tapping on various meridian points of your body. And I started practicing it, and it's like I felt like self-care, And I think, I don't know about you guys, but how much do we care about ourselves? For me, apparently that's a thing, because there's a lot of, I don't know, self-judgment and, stuff So that's just me at this point.
That's so beautiful. I mean, if you just tap on yourself and you're not feeling grounded, it's just, I can just feel it. You know, so do you kind of feel a consciousness in your whole body when you do that. I
Yeah,
think
and
developing go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that certain parts, like there's certain places that are recommended to tap on. It's like, yeah, I just felt like I was being held. You know, it's just like,
That's
yeah, well,
wonderful. Maybe you can introduce that at some point, you know, in the second half.
sure.
Well, yeah, Tim, what do you do? What is your current way of communicating with whatever is inside you?
Well, I've always thought of myself as being deeply religious um, or deeply devout. And another way of saying that is that that journey into the unconscious is really important to me. And it was later in life when I finally figured out that that's what I've been doing my whole life with art, is trying to reach that deep place. And since discovering Jung about 30 some years ago, that's been very, very helpful for me in looking at the landscape of what the psyche is about, and particularly figuring out how the anima provides a guide into that mysterious world. And art has always been my primary practice. I'm not a very verbal person, even though I write a lot, and I love being in conversation. But when I'm by myself, my words disappear, and I experience the world through sensation and through beauty, even though sensation is my inferior function. But I'm always looking for beauty, and beauty to me is the fragrance of God in the world. And so, for instance, right now in Montana, we're having this absolutely beautiful fall. And this reminds me of one of the proofs of God, I think, in the world, that where everything else, when it dies, it turns brown and smells bad. Well, why is it that the leaves burst into these beautiful colors and scatter all over the world? You know, that's absolutely unnecessary. But this is the way nature is designed. And to me, that's a perfect proof of God in the world. And so going deep, I'm experiencing that on a sort of a cellular level. I've had a sudden period of quietude, I guess. My brother-in-law died this week from ALS, which is a horrible disease. He's been taking this pretty deep nosedive and died a few days ago. And I've noticed that my creativity has just absolutely quit. I'm sure that that's temporary because I've always been a really creative person. But when I go to do art, there's just nothing there. And I'm spending a lot of time just sort of being in the presence of this feeling of awe. And this too is part of the journey. It's part of paying attention to the internal weather report, being swept along by the storm, and just trying to take account of the activity of that. I really appreciate being a part of this group, and every one of you guys has a really different way of accessing that mysterious part of our souls. And I take a lot of inspiration from each of what you do. I feel like I'm not very good at those other elements like dream analysis. I'm intrigued with it, and I'm not very good at it. And you know, the love letters to the anima is something that really intrigues me. And maybe there's a way I do that in art, but taking it into the verbal, like Gary is doing, is really inspirational to me. And I also really appreciate what Jan put in the chat. If you haven't looked at the chat, look at that. I think it's really another illuminating way. And when Adam talks about these meditation techniques, that's something that really intrigues me too. And I hope we can get to that tapping thing. I'd love to try that. But I think all of us, because we have different kinds of personalities, are reaching for it in a different way. And so it's just really nurturing for me to be able to participate in that group like this. So thanks, everybody.
At some point, I'd like maybe somebody to read Jan's, or she can read it herself. Jan, would you like somebody to read yours, or I could read it because it is very good. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you know, one thing I'm saying is one thing about your lack of creativity after your brother-in-law passed away was I was just thinking of the some you know, there is, and you said this is also a part of our experience, is the emptiness that we feel when we've lost somebody. I mean, there is a deep emptiness, you know, and yet that it's, you know, it's actually it is what's called a poignant emptiness. I think it's sad, poignant is sadly beautiful. I mean, myself, you know, I'm always my greatest emotion is gratitude. So yeah, you know, even in a moment like that, you know, I was telling my wife, well, for instance, the Diary of Anne Frank, you know, is just filled with gratitude, you know, or there's the you know, in the cemetery, I get a feeling of that too. But I can just see that at a certain point, the what young, you know, I just heard in the Red Book about, I was been reading it in advance of the Black Books, is the reason the creative is often represented by youth and by some new thing that's come into birth, is because this new thing that has come into birth, which is the symbol, which is what's created by the mediator who removes the distinctions between the realm of images and the outer world of reality, has created a new thing which has no suppositions. So that's what the birth is, that which has no suppositions, that which comes, is without words. It is beautiful and full of energy that just stuns us, which art is, and yet it has no suppositions. Well, anyway, I just wanted to quickly read Jan's, and then we'll go on, and I'm sure we'll get, so we can get to everybody. But Jan is she's still water that runs deep. She's incredibly good at these things, but my inferior function is sensation, so sand play helps me with that. It's a way of connecting with the unconscious, and she knows what it's like to be missing the world of active imagination that you're very close to. It's like writer's block. The youngins I worked with in the past said one has to keep communicating to the unconscious for it to be communicating to you. That's why dream work is so important. And of course, the dream work is, like as far as I'm concerned, it is my closest connection to the unconscious, because it's so real and it's undeniable. Every image in it. In working with Jung, I feel I understand a way of life that pays attention to both the unconscious and the conscious worlds, the realm of images and outer reality, or the mediator, both of which make up reality. The tree with leaves on both sides. See, if we're all living only the world of reality, we have our leaves on one side of the tree, but no images are associated with them, which is the purpose of a consciousness. It's not to be a let's say a drone in a beehive, or a worker ant in an ant hill. It is to take these little leaf cutting ants and then associate something with the leaf that is magical. How do we make the leaf magic? So Jung has helped me pay attention to the realm of images or the unconscious. As a child, dreams were whole events that guided my waking life. Now, that's being a mediator to the outer world. The dreams were the whole events. The realm of images were the whole events that guided my waking life, the reality side. So there we're acting the ego's proper function, which is to be the mediator. When I started studying Jung, this was always good. And by the way, everybody's that said so far, I feel almost on the edge. I feel my heart swell, and I also feel just a sense of, I would say, there's a pain involved in it too, because it's so beautiful. And I feel the pain. There is a pain in being here. There's a gratitude in being here, but there's also a struggle, So I feel kind of both sides of that. But the fact that the saving thing is what we're working on. We're working on the saving thing, And as a child, dreams were whole. When I started to study Jung, what I had thought and seen and experienced became clear, like putting on a good pair of glasses. This was my experience too. This is when I really first got introduced to the earth, to the grounded world, and I'm very much like Adam. I was so far away from the grounded world. How about you, Charles? Do you have I know you're working on your dream, but do you have anything you'd like to say about current what you do when you're trying to connect with these worlds as a medium?
I don't really have any sort of ritual or like practice or anything. I kind of just I don't know. I just kind of start using my imagination, and whatever I'm kind of going through or feeling or just what's going on in my life, I try to just imagine something about it so that I have sort of a non-literal version. I guess I kind of try to come up with like a dream that describes it. I try to kind of create my own dreams in a way, and just kind of let my imagination kind of spontaneously create things, and kind of ends up giving me a little bit better understanding of things, and things will happen in my imagination that are not exactly in my control, it seems, and I sort of just get some answers that way. I've been you know, I need to be putting a lot more energy, you know, me personally, I need to be putting a lot more energy in the, you know, ego consciousness, waking reality side of life. So I guess it's a little, I don't know, I'm in somewhat of a unique situation. I came into this whole Jung group purely because of discovering the idea of the puer aeternus. So I just wanted help with that. And that's initially why I came. And yeah, and so yeah, I guess I'm in a bit of a weird situation. I almost feel like I discovered Jung a little. Part of me says, you know, a little bit too soon. I don't know if I got into Jung too soon or too late or right at the right time. But I feel like I almost took a premature dive into the unconscious, and now I have to like kind of like reverse my steps and then like go around it and then like come back later in a way, or like take a jug of water with me or something. It's a little weird. I have to like, I seemed to have taken a very uncommon path to where I like started as an extrovert, became an introvert and so that I could kind of submerge into the psyche, and then now I have to like kind of like just take what I've learned and undo that. And it's I don't know, it's hard for me to it's a little hard for me to deal with sometimes. And yeah, I'm still just trying to kind of cope with that and trying to be active in the outer world while maintaining a connection to the inner one at the same time. And so that's kind of where I am at.
Yeah, well, it is pointed out some things too. I think illuminated a few things. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And because I think there's kind of a direction that isn't it. Now, Dawn, you can either, if you just have anything you want to say about what you're doing. I know that you've shared at one point that you had a lot of hypnagogic images and we're going through a tougher time in the recent past and everything. But if you want to just put a little bit in the chat about what you're doing right now, that would, you know, it's just kind of a sharing thing. You don't have to, though. How about you, Marina? Do you want to tell us? You're kind of an interesting character.
Come on. I'm having internet issues, so that's why I've taken the video off. But yeah, here I am. So I think, you know, it's been really helpful hearing people talk. And I'm thinking, you know, start getting a bit nervous, thinking, oh, what do I do? What do I do?
You know, Marina, we're not hearing you very well. Is somebody else hearing her?
My connection's unstable.
Yeah. Oh, there, now you're going.
Okay.
There you go.
So, coming is one that I want to share with you that keeps coming back to me. That spiritually,
Ooh, there we go again.
I think it's nature.
Well, you know, Marina, your connection keeps going in. Okay. Marina, your connection goes in and out. Could you just type up a little bit of what you do and either email it to us or something? Right now, you're having a little bit of a issue.
Looks like we lost her
Yeah,
entirely
we
now.
lost her. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that was, I don't know about you guys, but I, this very, like, as Tim was saying, it's very inspiring to me. And I think we learn more. And particularly hearing from, I think the thing that is it's so heartfelt. Don't you feel that every person, we're hearing their heart speak, and it's very, like I'm very close to Charles because I'm a puer aeternus, and I'm very close to Adam because Adam, you and I mean, you're I think more feeling function than me, but we have had a very similar non earthbound life, and where I mean, it's been a real struggle for me. One thing I do want to mention is I've been speaking with my wife about the beauty that I found in the in the uh, in the feminine polarity. Okay, in the psyche that is feminine and not mine, which regardless of the fact that I always say I was a male only by accident of birth. I don't really feel that male, or don't try to be. I've always never been a manly man or whatever. But just the beauty of the feminine polarity that if even if it's your mother or it's your aunt or it's someone who say a dental hygienist or something that you're dealing with, who don't you feel an energy? And I don't know, maybe the women can speak to this too, an energy that is that we lack, that is so now there's that in me too, in the inner world. So I asked the inner world about this, and I had this, maybe if anybody wants to speak about it, but I had a 50, or she was a couple years younger than me, but she was my cousin, and she was very schizophrenic. She would speak all these different languages. My wife did a little video of her. It was just amazing. But she was blaming her sister, who was her guardian, who lived in Chicago, and she lived here where I live, for kicking her out of the Red House. Well, she left the Red House when she was about 13, and she's now was 59. She's passed away just a couple years ago, but so she would not talk to her sister, who was her guardian. So I went out to her where she was, and I just sat down with her, and she doesn't have a father either. And I just told her, I said, Allison, the Red House is gone. You can't go back to the Red House, and she listened to me, I mean, so here, I don't know, as a masculine person talking to her, she believed me, but she wouldn't believe her sister. But anyway, I've just noticed that lately, is the fact that this polarity is so important. And where are other polarities that we encounter? Well, anyway, I'm going to turn it over to the other side here.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Just
Go ahead.
in listening to us today, it feels to me like we're a band. We're all playing the same song, but each one of us has a different instrument, and we're all really good at our own instrument.
Yes.
Can't really do the other job, but getting all together, there's this kind of energy that really
It
works.
is. It's a symphony, a little bit. Yeah, I love it. I mean, everything. How much poorer would we be without it? So, Marina's here. I'm sorry. Okay. Just a second. There we go. Yeah. I'm sorry, Marina. It was just I don't know what was going on, and you do have your video turned off anyway, so I don't know what's going on. Anyway, I'm turning it over to the other side now, so you guys, I'm going to just put myself on mute and go ahead.
Okay, so here I am. I guess worked out that this week I would be leading the activity, and so I had originally been thinking, I attended some sessions of what is called the Collective Trauma Summit. I don't know if anybody's heard of Thomas Hubel, but interesting guy. He's, I just found out yesterday that like at the age of 24 or something, he went on this 4-year solo retreat, I guess, maybe in a Buddhist tradition, I'm not sure. But when he came out of that, oh, there's Marina. You know, apparently he was kind of recognized as like a teacher of some kind. You know, I tend to not put a lot of stock on those things, but he's worked a lot with collective trauma, which is kind of connecting what has happened inside of ourselves with stuff that's happened outside of ourselves, whether that's in the past or that's things that are happening currently, you know, culturally, say. So the activity that I was thinking of doing is sort of modeled on some activities that he did during this Collective Trauma Summit. So it's like a little bit of a guided meditation. So I could do that activity with us. With the tapping meditation, that's really good. I've only done it like 2 or 3 times starting yesterday. So if you guys have a preference for one or the other, you know, I'm willing to do either. So
Go with your intuition, whatever you think. Or Gary, you.
I don't know. I was just going to say the trauma thing sounded really interesting, you know, to try to make that connection.
okay. All right. Well, yeah. If nobody else has a strong opinion, so let's do that. One thing that I would just mention as a caution, because in my own cases, I was working on this stuff. And in talking to some other people afterwards, I think it's important that we do this from a place within ourselves that's very loving, and where there's a lot of care and nurturance. Because sometimes what can happen is, okay, you know, what can happen is that you know, we dislodge maybe some sort of more painful parts in ourselves. And so as these things come out, it's important to be able to hold them in a space which is caring and nurturing, and that makes us feel safe. And one of the ideas of doing this kind of work, I'll just give you some very brief concepts about trauma that I've learned about, is and I'm not an expert, but what I understand is that trauma is a natural response. There's nothing wrong with it. If I'm in an experience that's overwhelming, then it's natural that I sort of shut down my ability to feel in that situation. It's a protective mechanism. So, but the result is that I may have parts of myself, based on the experiences that I've had, that are a little bit shut down, like parts of myself that might feel numb. And, you know, later on in life, I may be in situations where it's not the same situation as the trauma, but it has a similar pattern. So there's a part of my brain that's like, this is the same thing. And it kind of activates that developmentally frozen part of myself. And I find myself like having reactions, maybe behaving in a way that seems incongruent to the current situation and maybe even damaging, you know. It's like, why would I get that mad about that? Or why would I feel that sad or lonely or something in this situation, you know? So, so in dealing with these things, the first step, I think, is to recognize it's not bad that I had that response. But if I feel like now is the time to be able to unfreeze those parts of myself a little bit, then there are ways that I can do that, but it needs to be done in a real safe environment, safe container. As I understand, what happens is once you start releasing that energy, you're then able to incorporate it and reintegrate it into your life in maybe and that gives you some like unexpected possibilities for actually dealing with the current situation that you're in, you know. So, so the reason that this guy, Thomas Hummel, sort of relates this process to collective trauma is because a lot of the times, you know, maybe something happened to me in childhood that was very challenging, you know, and then I shut down. I find out later on, oh, you know, I'm going to have to work with this because it's affecting my life. There's things that have happened intergenerationally, both in terms of our own personal like ancestry, that there's a theory, and I think it's pretty well established, that there's a kind of a epigenetic aspect where, you know, our ancestors, say, going through an period of extreme stress or difficulty, that causes, you know, one's DNA to get activated in a certain way, and it actually changes what is activated in our genome, and then that gets passed down to the next generation, whether in a behavioral sense or in an actual genetic sense, you know, through the, you know, the sperm and the egg and all that stuff, and the DNA that gets contributed to us during that process. So there's like an intergenerational aspect in that regard. This is my understanding. There's also things that are maybe not our direct ancestors, but things that happen culturally, say in the country that I live in or that I've lived in. Just to give you an example, in the United States, the Civil War, I didn't live through that, but I think it's evident that so much of what we're experiencing now in the United States is directly tied to Civil War, slavery, things like that, you know, and that affects each of us who lives in the United States and all over the world, really, profoundly, in ways that we might not even be aware of. You know, how sensitive am I to the whole racism thing? You know, or is that a numb spot in me, which shows that there's kind of a trauma that happened there? You know, if I can't empathetically, if I really can't relate, I don't know how to engage with that stuff. There's some sense of disconnection, and that's like what trauma is, in a certain sense, a disconnection. So then the final sort of aspect of collective trauma is like, what's happening now? And I mean, I suppose all of us must be relating to this whole global situation in different ways, you know, but I would say it's really, maybe, I don't know about you, but I find it to be quite overwhelming, you know, the social distancing, isolation, the uncertainty, you know, there's a lot of things that are very stressful. I find very stressful. So I think I'm probably in a process of being traumatized, you know. So how do we work with that stuff? And so this exercise is sort of an effort to just be with that stuff. And I think a key concept that I'm trying to get is, the idea is we're not trying to fix anything here. Fixing is a whole different process. This is a matter of just being present with the experience. And that in itself sort of, from what I've been able to tell, sort of loosens things up, brings some more energy into the system, it creates its own dynamic. But again, it needs to be really needs to be done, I think, in a safe and loving environment within ourselves, because sometimes some painful stuff can come out. So what I'll do is I'll guide us through like we don't have a lot of time, so I'll try to pace it so that we can just explore that stuff a little bit. It's good at the end of this to write down a little bit of what came up during the process. If you have pencil and paper or matches that you burn and write with, like Kevin. Great. It's better to write, I think, because it engages the body. If you don't have that and you want to type, then that's okay too. And that also engages the body, but in a different way. I have my little journal here. Okay. So yeah, if you need to go run and get your stuff, go ahead. And, okay. All right. Oh, see you, Jan. Okay, thanks. Okay, so this exercise, so, hopefully everybody's getting what they need. So I'll just sort of start taking us down into this. And again, the idea of this stuff is it's really not to force anything. That's really important. Whether it's because we really want to get in touch with something or whatever. Maybe we have a sense of insecurity and feel like the minute something comes up, I have to see how to fix it, because I can't stand that, which is something that happens to me. So first step here is just to take some deep breaths. So just letting that breath enter me, letting it out, in and out. Really letting the oxygen in, breathing out a few times. Okay. So now I'm deepening into my own body. I'm deepening in, and my body has pockets. It has areas that may not feel totally present. Empty spaces, perhaps. Where are those places within myself? Do I feel some sense of emptiness or numbness in my feet, in my fingers, in my forehead, my face, my pelvis, abdomen, my heart, wherever, my shoulders? Let's each of us just identify where it feels kind of empty and disconnected, like I haven't been in that place for a while. Okay. Now let's just sit with that place inside of ourselves, wherever it might be. What does it feel like? What kind of memories do I have associated with that place? Which is spontaneously coming up in me? How old was I? Is there anything in that experience that seems like I never really processed that? This is where some more painful stuff might start coming out. So again, let's just be with ourselves. It's okay. You know, this is a safe spot. We don't need to let more out than we're ready to have come out. It's okay to just feel this gently, caring for ourselves. Okay. All right, now let's relate that to, say, our parents. What were they feeling? What did they feel? Not necessarily in the situation that may have come up for me, but in their own lives. What were the challenges that they had to address? What kind of emptiness did they feel in their own lives? What about their parents? What about their parents? And their parents? And their parents? This could go really far back. I'm not going to tell anybody what to imagine here, but if I went back to the root of my family ancestry, what would be some of the emptinesses that I might experience or perceive? The things that I couldn't deal with, I couldn't handle, that those people couldn't handle. Because it's in me now. It's been passed down. What are some of the fears that they had? The abrupt experiences of change that caused maybe a trauma response, shutting down, fear, escape, running. Let's just sit with that for a moment. Again, we're not trying to fix this issue, problem, or situation. We just want to remember it. And again, holding those experiences and those memories in a safe place within us now. The place within us that it's just there, it's just a presence, just is able to be with these things in a kind, loving way. Kind of like Mother Earth, just holding everything that's ever happened on her and in her. Creatures, beings. Okay. So that's our ancestry. Now, what about the wider culture? Where do we find ourselves in this continuum where we are? What kind of difficulties have been experienced by the people in the land, on the land where I live? Who lived there before? What did they do to each other, perhaps? Were those always the people that lived there? Were there others before that? When those groups interacted, found each other, what happened? You know, it's not that uncommon in our world that, you know, one group of peoples have annihilated another. So there's some pretty strong stuff there. What happened on my land? The land where I am, that maybe I don't feel like I have a sense of connection to it, but it's where I am. This is the land where I live on. What happened here with the people here? Because I'm living that now. I'm a part of that. That happened here. I'm not isolated from that. It's an actual experience. And I'm experiencing that now. It may have happened hundreds of years ago, thousands. But it's present here. It's present here. And it's in my body because I'm part of the land. I'm physical. I'm physical. I'm part of the earth. It's not isolated from me. So where are those pockets of emptiness, of numbness, things that happened in the past? Where are those in me, in my body? Can I feel? Can I feel what's there? And again, we're not trying to force this, because some pretty painful stuff could come out, maybe. It's okay, let's just touch it to the extent that we can. The point is not to re-traumatize ourselves. That's not the point. The point is to just be with this slowly, in a kind and compassionate way. Inside of ourselves, it's like a river flowing. And maybe something that was there anchored on the bed of the river comes out off. A boulder that had been lying there dislodges and is swept back into the river, reincorporated into our bloodstream, perhaps. And now, finally, where are we now? What are we experiencing now? What is this collective human experience that we're having all over the planet? What are we experiencing as human beings? What are some of the major challenges that we're having? And I don't really have to name them. I think for each of us to be aware of them. But there's some pretty tough stuff happening right now, all over. So how do I connect to those things? Do I feel a sense of connection? Do I feel a sense of isolation, disconnection, not even maybe knowing how to deal with it? These issues are so immense. Do I feel hopeless and powerless? Because that's a sense of disconnection. That's a kind of, I'm not an expert in this, but it may be a kind of traumatic response that I don't feel connected because it's too much. It's too painful. If I start thinking about what's happening, I have to shut down. I cannot deal with it. It's somewhere else. It's somebody else. It's not happening, So let's just breathe in, breathe out. Let ourselves just be here in this continuum, not trying to take in more than we can, just being aware. And it's okay, and I'm not going to just figure out all this out immediately. I don't have to. As somebody said the other day, it may take various lifetimes. It's okay. It's going to happen at the pace that is right. So the fact that we're doing this now, I think, shows that maybe we're all ready to some extent to be processing some of this stuff. But let's not take it too far. So we've got a perspective on some of the collective trauma that's happening in the world right now and our experience within that. And we've gone back and we've thought about a little bit, maybe felt and reflected on some of the collective trauma in our culture, the land where we live, people that have lived here before us and that are in us now, that I'm embodying, in our own ancestry, things that have been passed down through the generations back to the very beginning, wherever that is. Hard to imagine, but it goes far, far, far back. And then in our own personal lives, those parts of our lives that seem like that got stopped, just being aware of that and feeling that in our body and going back again to what are the parts of in our body where we just haven't even felt them for a long time. You know, it might be my stomach, my heart, my head, fingers, my toes, my legs, pelvis, anywhere. Okay. So now I'm going to lead us back up. We're going to come back more into our conscious selves. It's breathing. It's breathing, and it's holding ourselves. Again, this would be where the tapping meditation would be helpful, get us back in our bodies. Reassurance, it's going to be okay. We don't have to like immediately delve into this stuff. We're just, at this point, we're just realizing that it's there at the, maybe for the first time for some of us. For me, I know this is very new. And maybe now we can open our eyes and we have a few minutes, my time, it's 9:12 a.m. I would say let's give ourselves maybe 8 minutes or so to write about what came up for us. It's not something that we need to share unless we want to. We're not going to have a whole bunch of time. Most people want to stay beyond 9:30 or so, local time. We're just writing what came up. We're not judging, what did we see? What did we feel? I don't want to tell you what to write. So let's just put our pens to the paper and write. And then in about 7 or 8 minutes, we can just rejoin and commune, see where we are with this stuff. So I'm going to write 2. So it's been about 7 minutes or so. Sorry if some of us may still be working on this. I guess as kind of come out of the writing, you know, this is something that we can go back and look at later on in the day. It may be helpful for us. And it's obviously, you know, something very private. So as we kind of rejoin the group here, you know, if there's anything that anybody would like to say, Dawn posted a number of things. So we could read those, and thanks, Tim. Yeah, if there's anything anybody would like to say, I don't want to be the one that's just like talking the whole time.
I'll share a few reflections. I really appreciate your bringing our attention to the land. I think there are energies and stories that that percolate up from the land, that come from the lives of the people who have lived here before. And being in the middle of the Wild West, that's a very poignant aspect of my own upbringing. I was born in the sacred Black Hills, and I've always felt this real connection to the Lakota people. And I didn't figure out until later in life, I didn't make that connection, that really probably came from my spirit coming down into the world in the place where those people had thrived. And I often think about the place on the earth where my home is, that what are the stories that happened in this place that our consciousness cannot penetrate, but the energy is still there. And I ended up doing a drawing of sort of a bunch of my male ancestors. So this is me in the middle, and the outline of my father's head behind that, and his father's head, and all of the male ancestors behind him, who share this sense of being spiritually isolated. They were all very socially prominent men in their societies that had some kind of difficulty reaching the spiritual collective. Going all the way back to one of my relatives is named Obadiah Holmes, who was whipped in a square in Boston for some kind of religious infraction. And this is something that has come down through the ages in my family. And what I wrote about was your reflection about what's going on in our time right now. What is the collective angst? And it seems to me that there's a cycle of unfairness, that if you look at the way people felt in their lives, like for instance, the white people coming and wiping out the Indians here, they felt like, oh, there's something unfair about our situation. Here's all this free land, and you know, I am responding to the unfairness of my upbringing by becoming this, you know, upstanding pioneer or something like that. And I think if we look at our leader, he's not a happy man. You know, even though he's the most powerful man in the world, he's griping all the time about how unfair it is for him. And, you know, this seems like a human cycle that we just have a hard time escaping from, the fact that life is so damn unfair for me. You know, I deserve better than this. And what it brought me back to was this sense of the the wisdom of gratitude, and the people, especially like I think of the Northwest Coast Indians that had a gift economy, the people that learned how to create a society based on the gift, and everybody gets given a gift. And if you live in that gratitude, then you're able to open up to the world and see the beauty around us. Anyway, that's kind of what I was writing about.
It's beautiful.
I get-
Thank you, Tim.
Was that Charles there also? Charles and Craig?
Yeah, I guess I do have a couple of things. On the topic of this kind of collective trauma, I mean, I was almost, that's just a topic. I mean, that opened up a whole can of worms for me. I can talk about collective trauma of the whole human species until I'm just unconscious, just from not having any oxygen. I have some very, very, very particular and strong beliefs about antiquity and the human species in ancient times. And I believe that, I'm someone that's like, the Noah's flood was absolutely real, totally scientifically verifiable. It wasn't just Noah's flood. There were many mythologies across the world that spoke of a great flood that almost wiped out the human civilization. I'm someone that very strongly believes that, the war between the gods was a literal thing, but it wasn't aliens or anything. It was a kind of interstellar natural phenomena. It was all natural phenomena. And I can't even, it's hard to start talking about it because I will just go on and on and on. Literally at one point there was molten iron raining from the sky along with boulders. Like that's how that was essentially Mars being struck by an extremely powerful electromagnetic discharge. And that's where the Valles Marineris comes from, which is the giant scar across the surface of Mars. That's why many ancient cultures called Mars the scar-faced warrior, because they could actually visually see the Valles Marineris on Mars, and all the matter that was excavated from that valley was then projected into the atmosphere, and a lot of it struck Earth and literally created an actual worldwide devastation. And the evidence for it is extremely frightening, but that kind of took me on a whole inner tangent of kind of bringing all that stuff up. But if anyone's interested in it, I could definitely point you in the right direction on learning more about it. But other than that, I saw that Don said that something that I kind of that I experience is one thing that she said of if the unconscious or psyche speaks in images, then what about like words or thoughts that come to you in dreams or hypnagogic states? And I am one that has a lot of very wordy dreams, to where a character will come up to me and just start speaking to me, and we'll have, a dialogue within our dream. And what they're saying doesn't necessarily make a literal sense. They're giving me some sort of cryptic passage. But I have many dreams where the majority of it is not images or happenings, but someone just telling me something. They come along and just give me a sort of message, or I have a dialogue with someone in the dream, and it's extremely cryptic. And so I just wanted to bring that up and tell Dawn that I experienced that too. So yeah, but if you ever any of you guys are interested in the worldwide human trauma sources of antiquity, just give me an email. I can definitely point you in the right direction.
Sign me up.
One thing, Marina, Dawn, maybe we can respond to Dawn in an email with just us in the group here, including Jan, and then Marina, maybe next time you can just before we get going, just give us your little talk. I'm so sorry there was a.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I've had to come on my husband's computer.
Well,
that's why the name's appearing differently. Yeah.
that's not a problem. Well, why don't we'll start with that next time, and maybe everyone. I'll send an email with just us who are in this group, and maybe Maggie, and we'll maybe discuss. I put my little thing in there. Which was, by the way, Adam and Gary, these are just so powerful. Thank you so much. And just, like I said, we just don't have very many times in a week where we can go to this place, you know. Well, next time we'll start with the, is there something else anyone wants to do? I mean, I thought maybe we can do some of this online. You know, in an email. I'll set up an email group with just us, and I'll also put the chat in there. I see they now have a little thing where you can download the file. Do you guys see that? But I can still download it. But anyway, I'll try to get the black books out like on Tuesday or Wednesday, and we'll just start reading it from the beginning, and hopefully have a lot of discussion. But I think periodically, don't you think it's good to share like this? I mean, I just feel a healing energy, really, of listening to the real people who have faced a lot of struggle in their life, sort of repressing it in their talk, but you can kind of feel something underneath that's that is resonant, you know. So anyway, we'll reconvene. And Idris, thank you for coming. And Dawn, I'll
it's a privilege. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'll address your. We can address your in our email, and John. Marina. We'll start with you next time, and you can just kind of tell us a little bit about your journey. I think this is so wonderful. I mean, I learned so much, and I learned things internally, not externally, some externally. So anyway, thank you everybody, and we'll start on the exciting Black Books next week. So we'll see you next time.
I'm looking forward to it. Have a good week, everyone.
Yeah,
Happy
thank you, Idris.
Thanks. Nice
Bye,
seeing you,
everyone.
Idris.
Bye, guys. Thank you,
Bye,
Adam.
Tim. Bye,
Bye.
Craig.
Bye.
Bye, Adam.
Bye.